As the demand for VPATs/ACRs intensifies in the marketplace, a question that will increasingly come up is how often or when should I update my existing ACR? So let's go over the best times to start filling in a new VPAT and creating that ACR. And remember that a VPAT is just a templated document. When we fill it in and complete the VPAT, then we have an accessibility conformance report. So let's go over these different times, starting with major product or service updates. So anytime there are any significant revisions, changes, updates, etc., it's a great time to reevaluate the accessibility. And the major reason here is the product or service has fundamentally changed. So if you have a new feature added or there's a new version that's released, a redesign, you've changed the user experience, then you're going to want to fill in a new VPAT and create a new ACR. Next on the list is if you make improvements to the accessibility. So you go ahead and you go through remediation and make some fixes, then you definitely would want to have a new ACR that reflects these improvements. Because if you do, then your ACR is cleaner, it's going to be more conformant with the technical standard, and that is obviously going to help you win contracts out in the marketplace. Also, there may be procurement requests where it's not for any other reason than it's necessary for policy compliance. So I have here the example of, let's say it's a government agency or it could be a client. We require all sellers to produce a new ACR annually before the contract renews. In this case, then you're going to need a new ACR. So you're going to start filling in a VPAT. And this can be completely arbitrary. It's just dependent upon your client, your buyer, your procurement agent. The next item I have on the list is regulatory or standards updates. So let's say that your contract requires you to maintain conformance with the latest technical standard, whatever it may be, or the latest regulatory updates. So you may, like, let's just say it was your product must be in conformance with the latest version of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Then when WCAG 2.2 was released in 2023, then you would need to update. You're not really updating your ACR so much as you are creating a new one. So you'd want to create a new ACR and have that to hand to the procurement agent. So sometimes this is the case, and it just happens when there's an update. Then you need to make sure that your product stays in line with that update. And then on the next item I have on the list is you have a time based refresh. So I write, after a certain amount of time passes, it's best practice to update your ACR, even if your product or service hasn't undergone any significant changes. And one reason why here is procurement agents are going to be leery if your ACR is dated. So let's say your ACR is from 2021, then the procurement agents are going to start asking questions. Why don't you have a new ACR? And so this is a good time to just go ahead and get that, just because enough time has passed. So when should you start thinking about filling in a new VPAT? Well, I put the timeline at 1 to 2.5 years, and I think this can be partially buyer dependent and buyer demographic dependent. But if accessibility is something that is a high priority for your buyer, then just having a new ACR annually is a good practice. But at the 2.5 year mark, I consider that the cutoff where you'd probably want to get a new ACR regardless, because it's just going to work out better for you as the seller, because a fresh ACR is going to be seen in the procurement process. That's going to be looked upon favorably, and it's probably going to put points on your chalkboard, because it's like you're obviously paying attention to accessibility. You're on top of the game. Maybe you didn't even have to be asked about this. You just had it. And let's say it's an ACR from just a few months ago. All your latest changes and edits to your product or service are included. And so that's going to work out really well for you as the seller. And then another reason, the last reason I have on this list is if you produced your the ACR that you have currently, if this was produced in-house, if this was produced not only just in-house, but by a team that wasn't overly familiar with accessibility, then you definitely want to have an independently issued ACR. Again, this is going to work out much better for you in the marketplace versus trying to work with this past ACR that was completed in-house and may not be entirely accurate or entirely comprehensive. So that's yet another scenario when it would be beneficial or you'd want to have an updated ACR on hand so that you can deliver that, you can provide that to procurement agents. So that is the list here. These are most of the times where you'd want to get a new ACR. And so just again, remember that a VPAT is just a blank document. We fill it in. Once we've completed it, then it becomes an accessibility conformance report. So if you need help with VPAT services at accessible.org, we offer these services. You can find out more about our pricing and more about the service. I will include links to accessible.org in the description.